We're live.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Today is Thursday, March 4th, 2021. We have 8 bills on the docket. We'll start off with Senator with Senate Bill 726. Senator Feldman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me just start by saying the following, that any bill that Chair Smith is on as a co-sponsor along with Senator Huff must be a fantastic bill, and that is this bill, Senate Bill 726. Let me start the conversation. Late last session, we started a discussion about the topic that the subtopic of 726. And we ran out of time. And at that time, only a handful of states had passed laws like 726. Since the end of our 2020 session, though, we've had 7 more states that jumped on board and passed laws like this, including Virginia, Pennsylvania. DC had previously been on board. Now we're up to 12 states, and 11 other states have bills pending just like this, and really just don't want Maryland to get left behind. So, you know, as technology evolves around the world, it's up to government to respond with relevant laws. And one area of our economy, clearly over the last year, that continues to evolve is e-commerce. And companies like FedEx, Amazon are now rolling out some really cutting-edge technology to deliver packages to customers. And so that new technology is the subject of Senate Bill 26. We're talking about personal delivery devices, which is an electronically powered device operated on sidewalks and crosswalks to transport property on the public right-of-ways. They're basically robots using a combination of sophisticated machine learning, artificial intelligence, and sensors to travel on sidewalks and navigate around obstacles, to deliver cargo within that very last mile of their destination. Just from an environmental standpoint, the net result of this technology is to take cars off the road, vans, again, from the delivery process, reducing emission, pollution, congestion on our roads. But as we've seen in the last 5 years or so, you know, purchases that previously required the buyer to travel to a fixed facility are absolutely now directly delivered to the buyer's door. And that trend, as I said earlier, has been dramatically accelerated with the onset of COVID. And this paradigm of delivery to your door for both consumers and small businesses is here to stay. We're not going back, and that's in Maryland, it's in every other state. So we need to get with the program and keep up with this continuing greater demand. So 726 provides and establishes a statutory framework in Maryland that provides clear rules of the road as to how these personal delivery devices will operate in our state. And as I mentioned, 12 states plus DC have already passed bills like this, including Virginia and Pennsylvania, our neighbors, and 11 states have bills pending. So under 726, the personal delivery device will operate primarily on sidewalks, crosswalks, and shoulders, and is capable of navigating with or without the active control or monitoring of an individual. The speed will not exceed 10 miles per hour. That number is where DC, Florida, Idaho, Ohio, Virginia, and Wisconsin are. The bill also requires visible markings identifying with specificity the operating entity, and also requires the device to be equipped with lighting marked in Braille, and it prohibits the delivery of certain hazardous substances. There's also a very high liability insurance requirement, much higher than currently under Maryland law for owner-operated passenger vehicles. That number in the bill is $100,000 of liability insurance coverage. That number is where Florida, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia, and the state of Washington are. And because this is a new area, obviously, for our state, there continues to be a lot of discussions with the MVA and MDOT to figure out the best way to kind of make this work in the real world. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask, I did present a 30-second video for the committee, so you can actually get a pretty good idea of what we're talking about here. It's only 30 seconds, Mr. Chair. So proceed and play it. So that's what we're talking about, Mr. Chair. And additionally, I did want to say I've submitted a set of amendments that conform 726 to the House cross file as well. And so with that, I'll either pass it on to the additional witnesses or take questions, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Feldman. And we have your primary witness as Mr. Roddy. And Mr. Roddy is the primary. You'll have 5 minutes. And thank you for the nifty video. That was good stuff.
Okay.
Mr. Roddy, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Patrick Roddy. I'm with Rifkin Weiner Livingston, and I'm here on behalf of FedEx in support of Senate Bill 726. We'd like to thank Senator Feldman for his sponsorship of this bill. As he stated, this is not something that is in the future. This is here now, as you saw in the video, and other states are preparing statutory frameworks so that the people who are investing tens of millions of dollars in this zero emissions technology can be certain that they can bring these products, these delivery devices, to the various states. We would like Maryland to be included in that group. The legislation provides a number of specific safeguards for the public in the operation of personal delivery devices. And since the legislation was introduced, on behalf of FedEx, there have been a series of meetings with the Motor Vehicle Administration to determine what the Motor Vehicle Administration would need in order to administer the statutory framework that is envisioned in Senate Bill 726. I want to emphasize that the Motor Vehicle Administration has no position on this legislation, but they are not opposed to it. And we have created this statutory framework to do, in addition to what Senator Feldman indicated, also to make sure that these vehicles obey all traffic control devices, that and that they are not operated on any roadways where the speed limit exceeds 35 miles an hour. In addition, each operator, such as FedEx, would be required to file an emergency response plan with the Motor Vehicle Administration prior to any operations. And the Motor Vehicle Administration would have the ability to create regulations and processes for those emergency response plans. The purpose of those plans would be to have them accessible to first responder agencies throughout the state, so they would know exactly what they were dealing with if and when they had to encounter a personal delivery device. In addition, the amendments create what we are calling a permit process time period, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. And I think this is important because it was important in our discussions with the Motor Vehicle Administration. The amendments state that the statutory provisions of Senate Bill 726 would not go into effect until July 1st, 2022. But as of July 1st, 2021, the administrator of the Motor Vehicle Administration would have the authority to permit personal delivery devices to operate on Maryland roadways. The administrator would also be charged with coming up with procedures for that permitting time period. That would give both the operators and the MVA time to actually work on the operational aspects of the personal delivery device, and also give the General Assembly time in the 22 session to make any changes to the statutory framework, which we are proposing in Senate Bill 726. FedEx needs statutory certainty in order to effectuate a business plan that will bring personal delivery devices to Maryland. As large corporations investing tens of millions of dollars in the development and deployment of these devices, you can understand that that is a long-term venture. They're looking 3 to 5 years out in terms of deployment. So they need the statutory certainty that they will be able to operate in Maryland. As you will hear from Mr. Pauschnick and Ms. Kalori, the FedEx model is one of several for meeting the last mile challenge. The FedEx model actually would be partnering with local retailers and have the personal delivery device deployed from local retailers to the last mile. Amazon and others have different deployment models, but 726 is designed to accommodate those and those which are not yet designed, so that Maryland can allow these devices, which, as Senator Feldman said, are zero emissions devices, to help us lower the carbon footprint of the transportation sector, which is a stated policy goal of this General Assembly. In addition, this will greatly reduce the size of delivery vehicles on residential and urban streets. So, Mr. Chairman, outlining those amendments, I'm available for any questions, but I'd like to also hand it over to Mr. Scott Pauschnick, who is a direct representative of FedEx, to explain other details of the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy, and Mr. Pauschnick, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chair Waldstreicher, members of the committee. Thank you again for allowing me to stand before you to talk about this great opportunity we have putting together a statutory framework for the deployment of personal delivery devices in Maryland. It is very evident the rapid expansion of e-commerce over the last several years has fueled the growth of many industries, creating significant supply chain challenges. People want quick, reliable, and safe delivery of goods, plain and simple. The consumer demands, along with their challenges, have been driven to new levels because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now more than ever, PDDs are a viable option to deliver goods in a way that reduces human contact, all the while offering a new, fast, and efficient service. The global pandemic has propelled technologies like PDDs to the forefront of the supply chain, giving businesses like FedEx and Roxo, our PDD, the ability to provide last mile delivery in a safe and time-sensitive way. It's also worth mentioning that PDDs are an environmental win. Just announced yesterday, FedEx has set a goal to take our global operations carbon neutral by 2040. This goal is ambitious given our industry and scale, but PDDs like FedEx's Roxo are part of achieving that goal. We see significant safety, efficiency, and sustainability benefits of next generation technologies like PDDs. Using a battery-powered zero-emissions bot to deliver small items to local customers can lessen the impact of trucks and customer vehicles in supporting this hyper-local e-commerce market. As was mentioned by Senator Feldman, there are 12 states that have enacted this statute, and there are an additional 14, a few more have come online here recently, that are considering legislation. So this is not something that is, as Pat mentioned, not something that is 2 years from now, it is now. We need, in our future investment, it is critical that we have some type of authorization within the states to deploy this technology and to try to plan for the future. This type of technology is something that will not only be at the forefront of delivering to folks on demand, but it will also supplement the trucking industry as a whole that is struggling wholeheartedly with finding drivers to drive not only that last mile, but freight in general. Right now, currently, the trucking industry is looking at a median age of 60 some years old for our drivers. We're also looking at a 1.1 million drivers over the next decade that we'll need to hire. So it's something that we need to really consider. With that, FedEx supports Senate Bill 726, and I will take any questions, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Pauschnick. We'll now move on to Mr. Cleland, and we'll take questions from the panel, from the members after everyone's finished with their testimony. So, Mr. Cleland, you're up.
Thank you, Chairman Smith, members of the committee, and Senator Feldman for the opportunity to participate in today's hearing. My name is Jeff Cleland. I lead state and local transportation policy at Amazon. I join you today in support of Amazon Scout, our personal delivery device. Amazon and myself as a resident are proud of our growth in the state of Maryland. In fact, we've invested over $5 billion in our people and operations these past few years, growing to over 29,000 full and part-time employees at our fulfillment sortation centers, delivery stations, Whole Foods markets, regional air hub at BWI, and an Amazon bookstore. That's why we're excited to support 726, which creates a personal delivery device statute, allowing devices like Amazon Scout to operate in Maryland. In January 2019, Amazon launched Scout, a fully electric autonomous delivery system that operates in pedestrian areas like sidewalks and crosswalks. Scout is about the size of a small cooler that you'd bring to a beach, and it operates about the same speed that the average person walks. Scout is 100% electric and helping Amazon drive towards our goal of making all Amazon shipments net zero carbon, with 50% of all shipments net zero carbon by 2030. Safety is Amazon's top priority, and Scout was designed for safe operations. On top of the small size and pedestrian-like speed, Scout is readily visible to others with state-of-the-art lighting and is able to stop or safely navigate around pedestrians, pets, and other obstacles that you would see on a suburban sidewalk. We're currently operating and delivering packages to customers in 4 communities across the U.S. Snohomish County, Washington, Irvine, California, Atlanta, Georgia, and Franklin, Tennessee. Our customers, neighbors, and even local pets are at first curious about Scout, but we've seen that it's become a normal part of the neighborhood quickly. We're starting in these suburban areas, and we hope to expand to additional communities in the future. Suburban sidewalks are some of the least utilized infrastructure in certain regions, and this is a safe, innovative, and environmentally friendly last mile delivery option. We're excited to see other states considering this legislation, including Maryland. To date, as Senator Feldman had said, 12 states in the District of Columbia have passed these, with North Carolina being one of the most recent. So thank you, Senator Feldman, for sponsoring, Chairman Smith for co-sponsoring 726, and happy to take any questions about Amazon Scout. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Ms. Kilroy. You're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In deference to time for the committee, I defer to what my colleagues Scott Pouchneck and Pat Roddy said for their testimony. And I'm happy to help with questions if the committee has any.
Okay, great. Well, then with that, we'll move on to Ms. Harding.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Marta Harding. I'm here today on behalf of State Farm. Our position on the bill is favorable with amendment. State Farm supports new technologies and innovations in the new economy. They just want to ensure that the way we implement them doesn't create any unintended consequences in the insurance space. The concern that we have proposed an amendment to address is that this bill uses the word or the term personal to refer to a commercial activity. That in turn can create issues as to whether the liabilities associated with this activity are covered under standard insurance policies, particularly personal lines policies. Now, to be clear, these issues do not arise with respect to the proponents you've heard from today, the FedExes of the world, the Amazons of the world. But these issues do arise when you envision this technology being adopted by smaller businesses and sole proprietors in the future. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that. Admittedly, the cost is probably prohibitive now for small businesses, but we all know what happens with technology as time passes. And so the issue then becomes, the law calls these devices personal. And even though our policies, like our standard umbrella policy, liability umbrella policy, homeowners policies, exclude commercial activities, Maryland law defines this activity as commercial, as personal. And so it creates issues as to whether the activity is then covered under these policies. And just to close the loop, the problem that creates then is if the liabilities are covered under those policies, then those costs go into the pool that individual policyholders are subject to. And I don't think that's the intent. I think what our amendment would do is just change the word personal throughout the bill to automated. There may be other terms that could be used, and we think that would at least take away the concern that Maryland law is defining these devices as personal devices. So for those reasons, we would just ask for an amendment that would change the word personal to commercial to automated throughout. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Harding. And with that, that'll conclude the testimony for the proponents of the bill. We had one person signed up in opposition, but that person has since checked off. So we'll now turn it over to the committee for questions. I see that Senator Lee has a question. So Senator Lee, you go ahead, and Vice Chair Wallstreicher, I'm going to check off for a second, and the committee's yours. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairs, whoever it is right now. Okay, this question probably can be answered by anybody, probably the sponsor of the bill, Senator Feldman, as well as the advocates from FedEx and Amazon and even State Farm too. You're favorable with amendments, right, Marta?
Correct.
Okay. I think this is a good idea to have these kind of vehicles because it's it's not fossil fuels. It's also good to relieve congestion because you won't have these big trucks on the road anymore, and also it's an efficient way to deliver goods. But I was just wondering, in the states that have enacted, it's 12 states, right? 12 states that have enacted this type of legislation to regulate this type of new technology. Have those been in states or in areas, jurisdictions where there's high populations and where where it's highly congested? And I was wondering, how does that operate? Are there speed limits on how fast this vehicle holding the goods can go? And what types of roads are they allowed on? Is that contained in the statutory framework? And what kind of new vehicle category would this be? Would it be like a motor vehicle, or would it be like a cart, or what? And also, what happens in the case if there is a malfunction or there is an online hacking that affects the operation of the vehicle? Would you all, like FedEx or Amazon, be the liable party, or what would that be considered? Would that be considered like an accident, just like you have a motor vehicle accident where the liability would be with the parties? And is that one of your concerns, Marta, with the insurance aspect of it, or is that something else? Anyway, go ahead, whoever wants to answer that. Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, if I could just I'll let the experts answer some of the others. But Senator Lee, just to be clear, 2 of the states that already have enacted this law is our neighbors in Virginia and the District of Columbia. So right down the road from our 2 Senate districts. So I don't know if that gives you any comfort. With respect to the miles per hour, that actually, the bill as drafted has one number to conform with the House bill. With the amendments that I'm proffering, it have to be 10 miles an hour or less. Again, there may be some discussion about that. As far as where it would operate, I think what's envisioned, and I said this in the testimony, it's sidewalks and crosswalks, but I'll let the folks testify. And just to be clear, the favorable with amendment was really to change one word. It wasn't the substance of the bill. It was to just take the word personal delivery device away and call it an automated delivery device. But with that, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll open it up to the experts for some of our other senators' other questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Senator Lee, the liability coverage is envisioned to be on the operator. And so any kind of an incident, as you described, where the device would operate not into form and would cause damage, the operator would be responsible. And the bill requires the devices be clearly identified by operator. So there will be no mystery as these go down the street or down the sidewalk, whose vehicles they are. I'm trying to remember, there was one other question of yours that I wanted to address. Because you had
I was, thank you.
The senator did
so much. I just wanted to get on mute. Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I assumed that it would be treated just like any other accident, right?
I know what I did want to answer. This is defined in the bill as neither a vehicle nor a motor vehicle. So this, in terms of the Maryland statutory structure, would be similar to motorized wheelchairs or segways in how the Maryland code would treat it.
So Senator Feldman, are you asking us to create a new category for this?
Well, if you look at the bill, I think that's probably true. I mean, I have the bill here. It's basically saying that it's not a motor vehicle. And as Mr. Roddy suggested, I think it is creating a statutory framework for this new product
So
that.
you're asking the MVA to create regulations as to the creation of this new vehicle?
I don't have the actual bill right in front of us, but it's that essentially a statutory framework that the entities that are developing this, who want to invest and come to Maryland, want some assurance that we are putting in place a framework that will allow them and encourage them to invest in Maryland 3 years down the road. And without that, they're not going to come to Maryland. So probably.
Yeah, I understand. And I think that's necessary. You have to put the regulations and the statute in place before they're going to invest that kind of money in that technology. I totally agree. But I was wondering if it would be a new kind of animal, or, in this category of, ever since we've been here, there's like edgeways now, there's all different kinds of different type of vehicles that are used now. So I assume it would be in between a such.
Senator,
animal,
yeah,
right?
Senator, I think this is Scott with FedEx. I think you're right on. And a lot of states have treated this more like a pedestrian than they have any type of vehicle. However, even though it's treated as a pedestrian, there are certain provisions that it needs to follow that kind of tilt it over into the category of a vehicle. So what they have done is not necessarily created a new category, but defined the personal delivery device either in statute or in policy to kind of capture what it needs to capture to operate. We would prefer that, since this technology is constantly changing, it's evolving, that we have policy rather than regulations. In other words, allowing the MBA to kind of work with industry to create the framework we need in terms of some type of policy to regulate or to keep track of what's going on in the sector.
A flexible definition of, or right, so that it.
Right, correct.
So that if technology changes or updates, you want to be able to still have this delivery
That's
vehicle
great.
category then, right? So I don't see
Yeah,
this
we want to make sure
flex at all. I think you just
right.
need to work on it and understand what it does. And I thank you for bringing it, because we got to move with the
Sure.
times. But what about in cities like, it's not in cities like New York City, right? You don't have it like that, because like you do when you have really congested,
Right.
roads, like Fifth Avenue or something like that, or
Sure.
Street, where it would actually benefit. But then you got too many people, you got too many vehicles, you have a real mess. Would that not be used in those areas?
Currently, as of right now, the operations plan moving forward is more for a suburban-like area that has a retail locations that are close by to a consumer, where the consumers or residents live. That's more doable. We have to have the infrastructure in place. And keep in mind that this not only has to be a safe way of delivering goods fast, it also has to be very efficient for us. And so those areas that are very congested, we're probably going to avoid that, especially in the beginning, because it won't be efficient from the business standpoint, and it would also not qualify as being as safe as we want it to be as well. So those congested areas are something maybe for the future, and I think something we're all looking at. But I think for now, more of your suburban type area that has that within a 3 to 5 mile area radius of a retail locations in close proximity to the residents is where we're kind of looking at this point.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
That's a
I
good
think Senator
explanation.
Sidnor.
One more question.
Senator Lee, let's put
Scott.
Senator Sidnor in real quick so that everyone gets a bite at the apple, and then we'll come back to you. Senator
Okay.
Sidnor.
Go ahead, Senator Signor.
Thank you. In the multiple states that were mentioned that have this device, I'm curious, does their statutory framework have the companies that are using these public facilities and somehow to help with financing of sidewalks and the like? Because I mean, right now, sidewalks are pretty much the domain of humans. And you all, if you're going to be using these facilities, I can think of a number of communities whose sidewalks need their handicap ramps and things like that, but generally government isn't doing these types of things because of lack of money. So, I mean, I'm curious, is that built into some of these other states?
I
It
can
isn't
answer
cr-
that, Senator.
Good.
Oh, thanks. The
Go ahead,
only
Jeff.
state right now that has a fee for these is Washington State, I believe. And I think it's more for the registration of these and kind of a pay for in the bill for their motor vehicle administration to take care of that. As far as like a fee for operating the sidewalks, no, there isn't. Most of the states have some sort of marketplace sales tax to collect the taxes on that, and that would be essentially how how those taxes are remitted to the state and how infrastructure projects are planned.
Okay, thank you.
Senator, if I could add to that real quick, one thing that this does do, and what a lot of other states have done, is it drives that conversation between the business entity and the locals, the local governments. And so you have to talk among each other to find out, okay, this is where there's a heavy congested area. I don't know if your business is, the business model for PDD is going to work there. So that drives that conversation. So I think in the future, we can obviously envision at some time that the conversations that are happening may involve something that would help with driving that infrastructure.
All
I
right.
appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you, Senator Sidner. Senator West has some questions.
Yeah, just one or two. It all sounds very, very Jetsons-y. Those of us who are old enough can remember the Jetsons back in the 1960s on TV. And it sounds neat. I bet every one of us can think of problems that might crop up. For example, my thought is, suppose there's a house with a picket fence around it. How does this device get the stuff inside the picket fence? But I'm sure all of us can come up with a lot of questions like that. And my thought is maybe we should add to this bill just a sentence at the end that says the Maryland Department of Transportation is hereby authorized to develop regulations to appropriately govern personal delivery devices. What would the advocates think about that?
I'll let, I don't have an opinion one way or the other than as a result of this bill, those kinds of conversations are already happening. So I think organically, MVA, MDOT are looking to partner, I think, with some of the companies here and those that have yet to develop a product, I think, to come up. I think that will just happen whether we put it in the bill or not. But I don't know if there's language in the 12 other states that have enacted bills like this. They have something formally, in the bill, but.
Yeah, Senator. So along those lines, a lot of states, it depends on where you're at. Some states have a lot written into statute in terms of detail on how they want the program to run. And then there's a lot of states that say, okay, let's kick it to the MBA or to the MDOTs of the world and let them kind of work things through. And what we found, especially most recently in Pennsylvania, is we've got a little more detail in the statute, but then as you got into where PennDOT is in Pennsylvania, they really didn't want to have to deal with promulgating regulations. They would rather have this done as a policy so that they can shift with the times, if you will, if they could change this when they find out it's working best. So it gives them a lot more flexibility rather than having to go through another process of developing regs. So just to kind of give you a flavor of what's going on in other states.
Okay, so then my question, I guess, is more for Senator Feldman, who probably knows more about this than I do, is in order to authorize a state agency to develop regulations, does there have to be some authority conferred in the underlying statute? Or if the statute's totally silent on the point, can any state agency decide we're going to adopt regulations which will govern this area?
Well, I mean, I think the agencies we're talking about here, MVA or MDOT, they have very broad regulatory authority, I think, in there. I could be wrong. I would think that they absolutely on their own without some enabling provision I would be shocked if they don't have that authority already. But if
they have the authority to deal
that answer out, I mean, yeah.
How about things that happen on sidewalks? Certainly on the roads, but these devices are largely going to be operating on sidewalks. Does MVA or the MDOT have unquestioned authority to deal with things on sidewalks?
Yeah, Sarah West, I'll concede. It's outside my lane of expertise. I'm sure I'm sure your crack whip staff at JPR can maybe give the answer to that. That's a fair question. I'm not certain the scope of when we talk about the sidewalk, is MVA or MDOT no longer? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe one of the panelists does.
I'm sure our crack staff can figure it out. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you, Senator West. We'll get an answer to that question from council at some point. Senator Lee.
Mr. Vice Chair,
Yes.
unless I'm happy to stay, I've been sort of being called back to my own committee to do another bill of mine. If it's at all possible, but I'm happy to stay if you think I'll add great value to the discussion here.
No, go ahead.
We've got some experts here, know more about this stuff than myself.
No, absolutely. Go ahead, Senator Feldman. Thank you.
Okay.
Back to what you need to be doing. I think that's it, Senator, unless Senator Lee, you have any further questions.
Right now, I think in the interest of time, I think I can get back to some of the advocates to ask them some more specific questions. I thank everyone for participating in this hearing. I think this is kind of like a smart vehicle that is, we're probably going to get more technology like this to make delivery of products more efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Thank you, Senator Feldman, who has left, and thank you to all the advocates on that bill. That concludes the hearing. We'll now move to Senator Patterson, Senate Bill 115. Senator Patterson, you are up.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair, am I coming through? Okay, I can hear you guys anyway. Mr. Vice Chair and members of the JPR Committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to introduce Senate Bill 115. This is a bill that has been in the making for some time, and I think we presented in part a portion of this bill last year, and so we've made some changes. However, I will admit that we do have several pending amendments that we was hoping to get for this hearing, but unfortunately we did not get them. So the panel members who will be coming up behind me would be in a great position and knowledgeable to respond to any of those amendments that the committee might like to dwell further into. Senate Bill 115 is specifically designed to address at-risk troubled youth. In this county, in this state, there's a growing number of troubled youth that need some boundaries, need some help, need some assistance in an effort to get their lives back on track. So this bill will seek to serve as a catalyst and doing just that by significantly reducing recidivism and developing skill sets and some behavioral approaches that would go a long ways in helping, again, get these individuals on the right track. The program will use a holistic approach in targeted areas, including mental health, education, social work, technology, community police relations, behavior development, and career technical assessment. There's much more in this bill, but because we have such an outstanding panel who come with many years of professional expertise and experiences, I'm gonna pause at this point and allow this most able panel to take it from this point. That will be headed by Dr. Wilbert Wilson, followed by Dr. Ballard Blake, and the cleanup person is Mr. Barry Powell. I thank you for this opportunity to briefly introduce this bill, and I do ask that you give it a favorable response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Patterson. So according to committee staff, unfortunately, your advocates are not in the waiting room. And so we will certainly allow them to testify should they still be able to get on while the opposition is testifying right now. So why don't we begin, if it's okay with you, Senator Patterson, with Ms. Capozzello, who is in opposition to the bill. And then if your advocates arrive during that testimony, we'll make sure to include them.
Okay, they've been bugging me all week. I thought they were so anxious to get to this part, so I can't believe they're not where they're supposed to be. Okay,
We will try to track them down.
okay,
If
very
you have
good.
their contact information or your staff, if you can go ahead and
Okay.
tell them to jump on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Patterson. Ms. Capozello.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. Good afternoon. My name is Alicia Capozello. I am a supervising attorney with the Maryland Office of the Public Defender, where I've represented young people exclusively for over 20 years. I'm a Georgetown University Capstone Fellow in Youth Diversion. While we commend efforts to expand diversion, we respectfully request an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 115. First, this bill fails to protect a youth's constitutional rights. It would require youth involuntarily enrolled in the program to continue until the age of 18 years. Youth who have school issues or were simply referred by the court could be compelled to participate in this program without having been found delinquent, adjudicated, or even charged with a delinquent offense, with no procedure for appeal. Furthermore, these youth have no guaranteed legal representation, violating the due process requirements of the US and Maryland constitutions. Secondly, this bill conflicts with existing law. Under the Maryland Code, the Department of Juvenile Services is designated to develop diversion and aftercare services. This bill would usurp this role without any of the attendant forms of oversight and accountability. Finally, this bill fails to comply with best practices and is not evidence-based. As Annie E. Casey Foundation explains, poorly designed or implemented diversion programs run major risks, such as net widening and increased recidivism. A key best practice is to remove the stigma for a youth of being formally prosecuted. It follows that a diversion program should not be operated and controlled by a prosecutor's office. There are widely accepted national best practice standards for diversion programs. This bill fails to address any of them, including clearly identifying a target population. This bill only identifies at-risk youth at very different ends of the behavior spectrum. And finally, there is not a widely accepted definition of self-actualization program model in the academic literature related to delinquency, diversion, or youth development. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Senator Patterson, why don't we do this? If you're able to get in touch with your advocates, I feel like this hearing obviously was incomplete without their testimony. And while I'm sure they're submitting written testimony, I want to make sure that they have the chance to say what they want to say about the bill and in support of the bill. So why don't we just keep it open? We'll move to the next bill, if that's okay with you, Senator Patterson. We'll keep this open for the rest of the day. And if they join us, we will make sure that they can be heard today. Does that work? You're muted, Senator Patterson.
Oh, that will work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Senator Patterson.
All right.
So we'll leave Senate Bill 115 open for now, and then we'll now go to Senate Bill 750. I see Senator Ellis. There you are, Senator Ellis. Go ahead, Senator Ellis.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Wallstrucker and members of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. I'm Arthur Ellis, represent District 28, Charles County in the Senate of Maryland. And I'm here to present Senate Bill 750, which is a Charles County local bill authorizing a community service and pretrial release program. Okay, thank you for putting the slide on. Next slide, please. The purpose of Senate Bill 750 is to authorize the Charles County Board of Commissioners to establish a community service program and pretrial release in, of course, Charles County. Next slide, please. The pretrial release program are designed to uphold the due process of individuals who are accused of committing crimes. They cannot be constitutionally subjected to any form of punishment. Pretrial release allows the defendant to remain in the community providing for his or her family and aided in his or her defense pending case disposition. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of a pretrial release program? It further ensures those defendants who do not pose a risk to the community are able to be released from custody. And research shows us that lower risk defendants detained unnecessarily during the pretrial process show a significant likelihood that their risk for recidivism increases as a result. And could I say that, I'm not an attorney, I'm a CPA. The lead representative here in Annapolis is Delegate Deborah Davis. And so, she's done a lot of work with this bill. And fortunately for us, we have experts from the county who are here to testify when we're done. So that's just a little disclaimer. So next slide, please. Yeah, so who's eligible for the pretrial release program? According to this bill, in order to be considered for pretrial release, individuals must have no other charges pending in any jurisdiction, and they must not be detained for a crime of violence or for any type of escape. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of community service programs? Community service can serve as a reparative sanction that links the nature of service to the offense to be sanctioned. It evokes responsibility from the offender for his or her actions and can reduce the burden on the criminal justice system. It also provides an opportunity for the offender to see firsthand the negative effects their criminal activity had on the community. Community services also focuses on the offender's strengths and capacity for responsibility. Next slide, please. Who will be eligible for this community service programs? A court may order any individual to participate in the community service program if they have been convicted of a criminal offense or have been put on probation, or if it is recommended by the program staff. Next slide, please. Nearly 500,000 people in the US are currently being detained pretrial. In other words, they are awaiting trial and still legally innocent, because we have an innocent until proven guilty. It has been found that pretrial detention leads to varying levels of disruption across several indicators of functionality. Specifically, employment, financial well-being, residential stability, and issues related to dependent children. Every moment someone who's charged with a crime is behind bars, the opportunity exists for them to lose employment and thus deterioration in financial condition, can't pay child support, can't pay rent. So that's a problem. Next slide, please. In pretrial detention, defendants are more likely to be convicted, especially by guilty plea, which is often the fastest way out of detention, and receive much harsher sentences than defendants who face similar charges but were able to buy their freedom before trial. Pretrial release can specifically benefit poor defendants whose lives could be ruined by extended jail times, no matter what their criminal outcome is in court, outcome of their charges. Next slide, please. Community service programs allow the offender to repay the community at large and can help to change the values of the offender. Community service programs can allow the offender to develop positive ties with his or her community, and most importantly, community service leads to a reduction in recidivism of 46.8% compared to recidivism after imprisonment. Next slide, please. So those data cited can be looked up here. Just to pull these numbers and facts out there based on research done by my well-capable staff. And so with that, I return the floor to Mr. Vice Chair and ask for your favorable consideration of Senate Bill 750.
Thank you to Senator Ellis. It's a Charles County bill. Senator Jackson, I think we're going to take all of our testimony, if it's okay, before taking questions. And of course, you're welcome to ask that question of Senator Ellis. So we're going to go to Jerome Spencer from the Charles County Sheriff's Office.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, Senator Ellis, Senator Jackson. My name is, and members of the committee. My name is Jerome Spencer. I'm the General Counsel of the Charles County Sheriff's Office. I'm here before you on behalf of Sheriff Troy Berry to express his support for Senate Bill 750. Sheriff Berry has long recognized that pretrial services play an important role in the criminal justice system, and there is a need that needs to be filled in Charles County. Senate Bill 750 will provide the Charles County Commissioners with the authority to set up a pretrial program to be run by the Commissioners. Sheriff Berry also believes it is important, and this bill recognizes that pretrial service programs should be run by an entity separate and apart from the primary law enforcement agency. And Senate Bill 750 essentially does that. So Sheriff Berry very much asks this committee to return a favorable report. Senate Bill 750, it will provide important service to this county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. If next time you could provide a works cited document. I'm just joking. That was awesome, Senator Ellis. You had a works cited section. Mr. Foster, if you could unmute yourself. Whoops, I'm sorry. Try that one more time. You're up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, Senator Ellis. My name is Brandon Foster. I'm the director of the Charles County Detention Center. I'm actually speaking on behalf of the Charles County Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I happen to be the chairman of the Pretrial Services Committee, and we've been working for several months on trying to put together a plan moving forward to have pretrial supervision services in Charles County. Currently, we don't have that service. So in all that work that we've been doing with the Public Defender's Office, with the State's Attorney's Office, with the judges, trying to come up with the best plan, we do support this piece of legislation. It is enabling language in the sense that it gives the Charles County Commissioners the ability to establish such a program in Charles County. With that said, not only are we in support, but we also support the sheriff's position that the model in Charles County should be one where the assessment and referrals and recommendations are not done by law enforcement, but that the county establishes this program, and this new office would be the office responsible for assessing and making recommendations to the court. So with all that, we asked the committee for a favorable report on this bill. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Foster, for your testimony. Mr. Beach, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Senator Ellis. I am the District Public Defender for Southern Maryland, so I supervise Calvert, Charles, and St. Mary's counties. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Charles County is currently the only county in my district that doesn't have pretrial services, and I want to echo what Director Foster said. This emerged out of a subcommittee, the CJCC in Charles County. It's a great example of all the stakeholders working together to get some good legislation out. And so I certainly am grateful to Director Foster for his leadership on this. And I do think it is a much needed program and a very good bill. The only amendment, I believe I think I'm asking for the committee to make a favorable recommendation with the House amendments. The amendments that I think are critical to this very good bill being successful would be to remove subsections F4 small Roman numerals or F4, 2, and 3. So there should not be, in my view, a limitation or who can enter the program based on whether they have whether they're charged with a crime of violence or whether they have something pending in another jurisdiction. I can explain why, I can answer questions why based on my experience in Calvert and St. Mary's counties. But I don't think there's much disagreement on that, so I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail on it. I think if the county, when they implement the program, wants to add some restrictions, they can certainly do that. But I think I don't think the state bill should limit it, and that would effectively limit judicial discretion. I'm happy to answer questions as to why I think that would be a big problem for the program. But that's the only piece I think that needs to come out. And I believe that amendment has already been proposed in the House bill. And so I would simply ask that it get favorable treatment with those amendments, with that basically that piece removed.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. Looking around for questions, Senator Jackson has the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's not a question. As the newest senator to the Charles County delegation, I'd like to say me too, and I do like the citing reference page too. So, great bill.
Well, thank you for that. Charles County certainly has a wonderful delegation between the two of you, and there's another bill that is on our desk at some point about pretrial grant funding. And so if that bill is passed and this bill is passed, there will be a new pretrial center that is very much flush with resources. Absolutely. And that's a good thing.
Thank you.
So any other questions on this bill? All right, seeing none, thank you, Senator Ellis. Again, that concludes the hearing for Senate Bill 750. Before we go on to the next bill, if we could, let's return Senator Patterson. I believe your advocates are here. Did we lose Senator Patterson? Well, I see his advocates, Mr. Wilson and the STAR team. Go ahead on behalf of Senate Bill 115.
We've been here since 12:30 and we got muted, and they said, wait, and we've come on. And so we've been here since 12:30, 12 o'clock really. So
I'm sorry if there was any confusion. Go ahead.
Yes. I'd like to say it on behalf of the STAR program, that it is a pleasure to be before you today. And we have several members here, two other members who will be chiming in with some comments, but I'd like to thank Senator Patterson, and I also would like to thank Senator Jackson and Senator Peters, who gave us the opportunity to do our pilot project. And out of the pilot project, one thing that they made us realize for sure is they wanted a program that could reach across all of Maryland. And I can truly tell you that we have a model for the state of Maryland that would make everyone proud, whether you live in Allegheny or whether you live in Southern Maryland, or whether you live in Montgomery County, or whether you live in Prince George's County or Baltimore. Our program is a unique program, and then what it consists of 8 disciplines. We have built a model that speaks to kids and their needs, not from a day point, but also from night as well. We have just about completed the model within the next 3 months that I think that you would be proud of, and you can take it and carry it to your community or wherever you want to, and model it after the one that we're doing. The model that we're doing consists of 8 professional people, all in one gathering, all seeing the kids, all seeing them at night, all seeing them when it's time, when everybody else has gone to bed. We have a program that will zoom right in with them. We have studied the kids. We have come up with the different profiles. We met with the state's attorney's office. We met with several districts from all over the country. We met with Homeland Security. We met with the United States government downtown to develop this model. This model is one that I think that you'd be proud of. And I think that the key to it is that it reaches out to all of the components. It brings all the disciplines into one line. I like to use the analogy of a similar line, where within each similar line, there's professional, giving professional services, whether it's semi or whether it's virtual altogether. In our model that we designed, it speaks to the issue of what kids face today. And I'm quite sure you who have kids like I have kids and et cetera, that you don't know, sometimes we don't know what they're thinking or what they're doing. Sometimes outside sources can do a better job than what we can do. And we've been able to go to the community and talk to churches and talk to several other people. And the demand for the program is there. The demand in Baltimore is there. The demand throughout Prince George's County and the state of Maryland is there. This will be the first model in the country not just in Prince George's County or not just in the state of Maryland, but in the country where you can be proud of. And do you realize that for years and years and years and years and years, no one has really looked at the problem the kids are, you've looked at it and you paid money into it, but did you really go back and refine what that problem is? Most organizations don't do that. This is built into the model. If you want to go at midnight and tune into the model will speak to the state's attorney's office. The state's attorney's office will refer kids into our program and say that they got lists waiting for us. The problem is that when you go and you look at these kids, it's a one-stop shop. They go right into service, you refer them out, then you wait for a report to come out. This is not this kind of program. This program deals with the holistic approach of the kid, not half a kid, the holistic approach. And so with that in mind, I'd like to say that anyone would pick this program up and be glad to. One thing that we ask, and that is that you have put up the money that we have done, and it's your project, it's yours. When we bring it to you in the next 3 months, it will be a fulfilled that you can be happy about, and you will want that same program no matter where you live. And at this time, I'd like for Dr. Blake, who is our mental health person, to speak to you as to exactly what we have done. Dr. Blake, thank you.
All right, Dr. Blake, you're up. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, chairperson and committee members. Thank you guys so much for giving us an opportunity to talk. I am Dr. Blake, and I am the mental health coordinator for the STAR team. And I know I have 2 minutes, so I want to make sure I get in exactly what I think that would be beneficial for you to hear, to let you know why I think that this bill should be passed for our kids. First of all, when you think about what we're going through today with the pandemic and all of the mental health issues that all people, not only our kids, but the community as a whole, we're going through. Our team, we're very connected in the community, and we also we're connected with a lot of the mental health and a lot of the school systems and all the other folks. We are dealing and talking to the Children's Hospital.
All right, Ms. Blake, I think you were accidentally muted on your end. If you could unmute. And then we will continue. All right, we're going to get our friends from the STAR team 1 more minute to unmute themselves. Apologies to the committee and those at home for the technical problems here.
Okay, so I'll continue, and I know I probably lost all the time, so I'll go right to where I was talking about the Children's Hospital Administration and how we're connected with them. We're also connected with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and those organizations are pushing and they're calling on Congress and other leaders and the administration to pass bills for programs like ours for kids, because they're seeing that so many kids are committing suicide. They're seeing them on a daily basis coming into the hospitals, and they're running out of programs that can support them. Our program, we do that. Our team, we also we not only deal with the mental health piece, and the problems that we see within the community with the pandemic. We're also looking at ensuring that we're helping our kids and along with the families, because the hospitals are seeing that there's a 20% increase in mental health issues in the kids that they're seeing, and they're in for suicide, and there's also 40% increase in disruptive behavior. So we believe that our program could be a good program to bring into community across the Maryland, across the state, actually, that can help with helping our kids be better people, and also be able to help them with their schoolwork and to be more mentally sound. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Blakes. Is Mr. Powell there?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Barry Powell. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the STAR team. We appreciate you and the challenges you guys face as you legislate, finance, transportation, all the things that you do. But we feel that Senate Bill 115 is an easy choice. It's about the children. And I would like to give you some simple reasons for supporting our bill. This is a virtual program with direct contact to at-risk youth and adolescents anywhere and anytime. The 8 disciplines that you heard my colleagues, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Blakes, refer to include counseling, mental health, medical health, social work, career technical education, legal mentorship, IT and technology, as well as the education that's wrapped around the whole program. Our educators on our team have actually graduated 100% of one of their graduating classes and also obtained 100% full scholarships for all of those children that they graduated. Dr. Blakes, our mental health advisor, has performed these related services not only in the county, but in the state, but in the country, but all over the world. Dr. Wilson, a community outreach guru for 45 years, he's been doing this. Dr. Allen, our medical doctor, he has been in one of the most challenging neighborhoods inside of the Beltway and has been delivering not only medical services, but counseling services because he cared so deeply about the patients and their families that cared to come to him for his services. As one of the founders and the writers of the program, I solicit you to support the bill, Senate Bill 115. Over the years, we all have experienced friends and family members who may have faced challenges of mental illness and depression and the need for general individual or family support. Our children, our best natural resources, our treasures need us now. Please deeply consider putting off help for at-risk youth and adolescents. We need you to do that now. They need your help now. COVID-19, as we have discovered over the last year, has exacerbated the situation that we have. Kids are isolated at home. They're experiencing anxiety, the social depravity that they're experiencing. And we all know that our kids are overly stimulated with the phone. So we would really deeply appreciate if you would give the STAR team an opportunity to do what is best for our children, our community, and serve you as we have tried to bring this program over the last 3 years to its fruition, as Dr. Wilson said to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Any questions?
Powell. We really appreciate your time and that of everyone on your team. Looking around the room, I see we have no questions. And so that concludes the hearing for Senate Bill 115. Thank you again. And again, thank you to Senator Patterson. We'll now move on to Senate Bill 863. I'll switch gears here for a second. Senate Bill 863 is my bill. So as I pull up the testimony here. So, you know, I got elected a long time ago. It was 2006. I was 26 years old. And I noticed that a lot of my friends were texting. And this was back when you had to like press the button 3 times to get each letter. It seems so long ago, and it was very dangerous. when people were trying to text while they were driving. It was a problem, and certainly one of the laws that I'm most proud to have passed here in the legislature was the law banning texting while driving here in Maryland. But now we're 15 years later, and still distracted driving is a terrible problem, a deadly problem. Despite the law and despite robust state and local public awareness campaigns, the reality is that distracted driving is nearly impossible to enforce. Phone use from a distance is hard to spot. And by the time an offender is pulled over, there's then no evidence of the violation. They've put down their phone. On average, more than 180 people die every year in Maryland from distracted driving crashes, and more than 27,000 are injured. So I asked myself, how do we substantially reduce distracted driving and do so from within an equity lens? The answer is Senate Bill 863. Senate Bill 863 would permit the state and local governments to use real-time digital spotters, which are cameras trained to zero in and identify a distracted driving violation. The camera sends the image of the violation to a law enforcement officer in the vicinity. The officer then chooses whether to make a stop and issue a citation or a warning. If the camera doesn't pick up a violation, the image is completely deleted and not sent on to law enforcement. The bill permits the image of the violation to be used as evidence for issuing the citation because distracted driving is tough to enforce in real time. So I'm going to ask Ms. Pop to go ahead and put up a picture of what we're talking about here, what an officer might see as I continue my testimony. Because we're not advocating for totally automated enforcement, Maryland's distracted driving program must be carefully designed to promote progressive approaches to law enforcement interactions and with monitoring from other state agencies to ensure that the program is being fairly implemented. The legislation before you is a conscientious approach to reduce opportunities for racial profiling, discrimination, or other disproportionate harm. So here's what the bill does. It reduces the fees associated with distracted driving, requires racial equity studies before the technology can be deployed, and limits what the images can be used for. SHA and local departments of transportation would be involved in the procurement and regulatory oversight too. We are also requiring law enforcement to undergo racial equity training for traffic enforcement and for departments to report back to SHA demographic data so that we, the General Assembly, can monitor how this technology is being used and identify if there are concerns about racial justice. Nationally, distracted driving claimed almost 3,000 lives in 2018. Among those killed, 1,730 were drivers, 605 were passengers, 400 were pedestrians, and 77 were bicyclists. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not advocating for automated enforcement because the truth is that when an officer issues a citation, studies show that the driver is 4 to 5 times more likely to change behaviors. The safety impact is just incredible. This legislation will be a positive addition to the suite of data-driven enforcement tools deployed around the state. This goes beyond photo enforcement and is really about the future of traffic and pedestrian safety. We can see our ambitious work paying off in Montgomery County, which used to lead the region in pedestrian and cyclist deaths. Prince George's has around 150,000 fewer residents than Montgomery County, but its pedestrian fatality rate is about twice ours. In fact, Prince George's County, Fairfax County, DC, Arlington County, and Anne Arundel County all had higher per capita pedestrian death rates than Montgomery County. What does that mean? It means that advanced technology and camera enforcement work. Once a driver picks up their phone, they put their passengers, other cars on the road, pedestrians, and bikers at risk. Texting is by far the most dangerous distraction, as we already talked about. Sending or reading a text takes your eyes off the road for 5 seconds. At 55 miles per hour, that's like driving the length of an entire football field with your eyes closed. How many of us are driving the length of a football field on the way to and from Annapolis every day? And does anyone ever get caught doing it? With real-time digital spotters, we can help put an end to these unnecessary accidents and deaths. Many of them are entirely preventable, but without enforcement, we're not going to change behaviors, and distracted driving will continue to mount. Distracted driving contributes to 58% of all crashes in Maryland. Texting and phone use are leading causes of distracted driving. And even though they're illegal, the laws alone aren't enough to discourage drivers from breaking the law and putting themselves and the people around them at risk. The future of traffic safety will be driven by technology and data. We can be trailblazers while ensuring that we do it through an equity lens. I look forward to working with this committee on this important legislation and ask for a favorable report. And with that, I will turn to David Helms, a safety advocate from my legislative district. And the chairman has returned, and we'll make sure Mr. Helms is unmuted. Go ahead, Mr. Helms.
Thank you, Senator Waldstreicher. Can you hear me? Thank you. Chair Smith and committee members, I'm Dave Helms, and Montgomery County, DC, and Prince George's bicycle advocate. I support SB 063. I'm here for my friend, Master Sergeant Sean Durkin, who was killed this past year, July 15th. He's a 27-year veteran, licensed waterman, shell fisherman, lived in Dundalk. He stopped going to work one morning last July when there was a crash. He was there as a good Samaritan to support that, to see what's happening, lend assistance. He called 911. He opened his door. He got out and he was killed. He was hit and killed. So he, I helped train Sean. He has a wife. He had a wife and 4 children. They're orphaned. Well, they don't have a dad anymore. So I feel strongly about supporting this bill. You've heard Senator Waldstreicher talk about the statistics. That's 60% of all crashes are contributed to in Maryland and across the U.S. for distracted driving. You know it's out there. You know this in your heart. And there is, as he said, 15 years of enforcement and law on the books. We should enforce our laws. This is a real plague on our public health safety. Today, there's high visibility enforcement. It's ongoing. The law enforcement officers use their eyes in high visibility enforcement that is funded by Highway Safety Office funds, grants, to almost 50 police departments across Maryland every year, $250,000. So this is happening. What this bill will do is give them a tool. It'll be an objective tool, as Senator Waldstreicher was talking about, that is repeatable. It'll be repeatable in Allegheny. It'll be repeatable in Anne Arundel. The sensor is the camera is infrared. It does not see color. It does really not focus on the faces because the camera, as you saw in the photo, is directed down at 45 degrees. It's looking for the hands and their position, and it can see the heat signature of the phone and the intelligence of the script identifies that through a threshold that's set. So it'll enhance law enforcement. It'll make it more objective. It'll make it more transparent and accountable. I think this is win-win for law enforcement. It's a win for equity concerns, and it addresses the really epidemic of crashes that cost Maryland citizens, residents, over $1 billion every year. So I strongly encourage you to support this bill. Thank you.
All right, I think that the chairman may not have host abilities. We'll get those back to you, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Joel Feldman from End Distracted Driving. Mr. Feldman, you're up.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you all committee members. I'm very happy to be here and speak with you today. Vice Chair did such a good job summarizing the statistics. I think I'm not really going to talk about those too much. I'm an attorney in Philadelphia. I've been an attorney in a Center City, Philly law firm for almost 40 years, but is more appropriate and pertinent for now. I'm also the father of a daughter who was killed by a distracted driver. Since my daughter Casey was killed, I still practice law, but I do this. I do educational programs around the country with volunteer speakers, many of whom are lawyers, legislators, physicians, nurses, and we've spoken to collectively about 500,000 kids, no cost to the school. My daughter's favorite color was pink, so I have this pink wristband to remember her. But in doing these talks, I also meet with moms and dads, and they give me wristbands in their kids' favorite colors. And they say to me, do something so this doesn't happen to any other families. Do something so that these kids get to live their full lives. Distracted driving disproportionately and adversely affects our young. Senate Bill 863, if enacted, would reverse that trend. And the way I look at it is that the deck is stacked against our kids. You think about it. It is an addiction, but I won't call it that. I'll say it's a compulsion to use their phones. They're the most inexperienced of drivers. And I bet there's hardly a parent here who's listening who hasn't driven distracted with their kids in the car. I've spoken with about 200,000 kids personally all across the country in Maryland. And I always ask the kids, how many of your moms and dads drive distracted? 70 to 80% will publicly admit it. So we are telling our children, don't drive distracted, but we're showing them that it's okay. So the idea that a critical safety message like that would ever be effective when it's so tainted with hypocrisy is ludicrous. In terms of the deterrent effect, a study by AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety found that 16 to 18-year-olds were the group that thought they were the least likely to get caught texting while driving. So the obvious benefit of Senate Bill 863 is apparent. 88% of us in another study said that our biggest highway safety concern was distracted drivers. Only less than half said drunk drivers. We've changed the culture with respect to drunk driving. It's not socially acceptable. We're not there yet. We're not there yet with distracted driving, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I think this bill will save lives, particularly young lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Last, Mr. Etzbach.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Vice Chair, Chairman Smith, members of the committee. Mark Etzbach with AccuSenses, coming from an industry perspective to support Senate Bill 863. So I started in the road safety space in 2001, specifically in the camera enforcement industry, and very familiar with the negative perceptions against the use of cameras for traffic safety. So definitely lived through the trials and tribulations and all the negative perceptions against the use of technology. And we support Senate Bill 863 because we feel like this is the new generation and new wave of leveraging the use of technology for road safety, but addressing many of the traditional concerns with automated enforcement. The two real primary concerns with automated enforcement have always been the right to face my accuser and the perception that the use of technology was for the purposes of raising revenue and not about safety. And so with Senate Bill 863, the use of this type of technology in real time eliminates that concern of the right to face the accuser. So traditionally in automated enforcement, you would commit a violation, somewhere behind the curtain, the evidence goes through a process, and maybe 7 to 14 days later, a citation shows up in the mail, right? And so now you've committed an offense weeks prior. Maybe you were in the car, maybe you weren't in the car, and kind of the escalation of all those issues where it's unfair because I didn't get the right to face my accuser at the time of the violation. The other issue being the revenue component is most automated programs, citations are civil in nature and non-criminal, much like a parking ticket. Whereas with the real-time application of the enforcement as proposed in Senate Bill 863, we would propose to enforce existing Maryland statute for distracted driving and belt use and so forth. So we're not decriminalizing or turning it into a parking ticket. We're enforcing existing statute. So really, again, some of the key perceptions of these being revenue versus safety issues is addressed, and as Vice Chair Waldstreicher mentioned, 4 to 5 times more likely to change your behavior and have that road safety benefit by being pulled over by law enforcement versus getting a ticket in the mail. So happy to answer any questions that there may be, and appreciate the time to testify today.
Thank you for your testimony. Let's begin the questioning with Senator Huff.
A question for the sponsor. So this bill or this technology just takes a picture of you while you're driving and uses that to determine if you violated the distracting driving or not, correct?
Right. Mr. Esbach will be able to explain the technology in more depth.
No, I just want to know if it's a single photograph is what it uses, correct?
Yeah. So it takes multiple photographs. What the primary photograph is the photograph you saw that Ms. Pop put up. There's no head, you just see the body, and it uses artificial intelligence to determine whether you are looking at your phone at the time the photograph is taken. The other photographs that the camera takes are simply identification photographs. They're taking pictures of your car so that if an officer wishes to pull you over, they'll know which vehicle is associated with that picture.
So my question is, under the law, it's legal for me to take this phone while I'm driving and initiate and end a call, correct?
That's correct.
So how would taking a photograph of me holding a phone and I'm initiating or ending a call be able to determine if I'm texting and or just following the state law and initiating or ending a call?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the camera is not able to make that determination. Only the law enforcement officer who then pulls you over can make that fact determination based on the discussion with the officer. And so if you get pulled over and you say, listen, I was initiating a phone call, and that statement is credible to the officer, then there is no basis for a ticket to be issued and you're on your way.
So you'll have this technology set up and you're saying every time it requires a police officer to pull you over subsequently that they cannot then just mail you a ticket like a speed camera, red light camera?
Exactly, that's correct.
So basically it's a question of whether you are stupid, whether you get this ticket or not. Were you texting and driving, sir? Yes, actually I was. But if you just say, I'm not going to answer you, or you say, no, I wasn't, then they're like, okay, no ticket.
Yeah, so we allow the officer to do some investigation as part of this process, including a discussion with the driver, just like they would under current law, right? So under current law, if an officer sees you doing something on your phone, you'll get pulled over. We know members of this body who get pulled over on Route 50.
Yeah, because an officer can see you. You can clearly tell people are swerving, they're driving bad, they're texting, you can tell. But there's a lot of people that it's legal for me to just drive down the street and hold my phone if I want. I can initiate a call, I can end a call. A lot of people, the law is not specific on it, but a lot of people use it for GPS. I use it for GPS. I have a clip now on my thing, but maybe some people don't. Maybe they're following the GPS and holding it up. But under what you're saying is, unless the person basically admits guilt to the officer, basically the person's ignorant and doesn't understand the law, or they just start blabbing to the officer, they're not going to get a ticket, right?
So, Senator Huff, so just go back to our Route 50 example. Most of the people who are pulled over on Route 50 are by a fixed officer. You know the spots, I know the spots, right where they sit. It's not an officer watching the person driving for an extended period of time. It's an officer in a fixed position with a vehicle going by at around 60 to 65 miles per hour. And that officer makes a very quick determination about whether they think the driver is texting while driving or initiating a phone call, as you indicate, or ending a phone call. And so this technology is in the same situation as our officers are under current law. It doesn't change that whatsoever.
Well, one other thing is it looks like this is just a civil penalty if it uses this technology. Is that correct?
I don't believe.
I can see your head shaking.
Yeah, Let me pull it up again here, but I don't believe so. I believe it's the same penalty as the distracted driving penalty is under current law. This isn't a new crime. It's just a new technology.
Well, I'm looking at it because the penalties, the way I was reading it, sorry, I'm trying to toggle between the Zoom and everything else. It looks like it just lays out 25 for the first and 50 for the second. But I remember Senator King had a bill on texting and driving, and we really like hammered people with a bunch of penalties. So it looks like this is different. If you look at it, it's, yeah, first offense, not more than $75. This bill lowers it to $25, and a subsequent goes from 125 to 50. So this looks like this lowers the penalties. If you look at page 4 of the bill, and I thought maybe that was because it was using this device or something.
Yeah, no, so my understanding is that it's lowering the penalties in part because the enforcement becomes easier. And so with more frequent enforcement, you're going to have more of these tickets. You can have a lower ticket value. We want to make clear that these aren't designed to raise revenue. That's the idea here.
Well, I guess my question for the advocates here is, are you in favor of lowering the penalties? I mean, normally people come in if there's a rash of problems and you have a large problem of issues. For example, I had a bill yesterday on people destroying campaign signs. It's a big thing. So I'm raising the penalty. Normally you raise the penalty if there's a problem. And I guess for either Mr. Feldman or Helms, you support lowering the penalty on people who are texting and driving?
Mr. Feldman, go ahead.
Well, I think it is a new technology, and I think it has to gain a little bit of traction. I'm not generally in favor of lowering the penalties, and it's probably beyond this, but in order to get federal funds, you need to show that there is successively greater penalties for distracted driving laws. I will just also point out that under your law, as I understand it, a 16 or 17-year-old can't hold the phone. They can't talk hands-free. It's a total ban. So this might make it easier to deter kids from using their phones. But maybe somebody else can comment more on the penalties.
Well, just before you get off. So, I mean, right now, a first offense is $75. You're cutting it to $25. It's a dramatic reduction. And a subsequent, you're cutting from $125 down to $50. And it looks like you're wiping out a third one, which is $175. I mean, this is a dramatic reduction in the fines. I mean, I listened to your testimony about how we needed to punish people who are texting while driving. And this bill would call for a dramatic reduction in the punishment for doing this.
Well, with all due respect, I did not say about that we need to punish people. We need to deter people. We need to educate people. And we need to take care of our kids first because they're most at risk. I didn't draft the bill, but when I read it, I looked at that. And I'm just implying some intent that maybe because it was a new technology, the drafter of the bill wanted to make it seem less draconian. Hey, it's a weird technology, but the fines will be less. But that's probably a question better for somebody else than me.
Okay, well, that's. I mean, I guess I made my point there is that, I mean, we are judicial proceedings. We deal with criminal penalties. The idea of criminal penalties deter criminal behavior. And normally, and in fact, I'm pretty sure we have been raising the penalties for this. I do have concerns about the technology and looking into people's cars and privacy concerns, but I'll just leave that comment there. And I know Senator West has a question.
Senator West.
Actually, I had a question, but Senator Huff has pretty much covered everything I wanted to ask, so there's no sense in asking it a second time. I do really wonder about reducing the penalties. It seems to me that while driving is a serious problem, and the idea that we're going to cut the penalties by 2/3 doesn't make sense. But we'll talk about it later.
Yep, happy to chat about this in the voting session about whether we want to keep the reduced penalties. And real quick, I don't want to belabor it, but Senator Huff, to your question, we have additional images that show that the AI will blur any other aspect of the car besides the violation. And so if you're in the passenger seat, you're not able to identify who is in the passenger seat, things like that. So I think that's a legitimate concern. Senator Hedelman has a question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Chair. You referenced doing some investigation to ascertain whether someone was indeed texting. And I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit. Does an officer have the authority to be able to look at your phone and to see whether there's a text there, and check the timing? Just curious, because I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening in most enforcement situations. I don't think the officers looking at the phone, asking for the phone, checking the timestamp on the phone. I've never gotten a texting while driving citation, but those who I know have received them, it's fairly routine. I saw you texting while driving. They write out the ticket, and then you're on the way without the officer handling the phone. And certainly someone would have, I imagine, the ability to refuse if that were asked, because you have a Fifth Amendment right. So, Mark, I'm going to unmute you just because you have a national perspective, but I don't think there are many circumstances in which the officer is looking at the actual phone.
Yeah, and one of the advantages of the technology too is, whether it's distracted driving, seatbelt use is, you're looking at, to Vice Chair Waldstreicher's point, you're looking at a car traveling very fast, and to key in on that behavior from law enforcement, really have to focus on a point in time and very quickly determine that behavior. And so the unintended consequence of hands-free laws are people driving with their phone by the steering wheel, and now they're pushing the behavior below the dashboard. And so we're seeing 97 to 98% of violations happening well below the dashboard in the lap of the driver to hide the behavior, right? Frankly, from law enforcement, so they can't see it. So this technology gives them that advance warning of a potential violation occurring, and it then allows them to still use their personal observation and actually see the car travel by them and see if that behavior that they're physically observing is consistent with what the technology presented to them, seconds prior. So hopefully that answers some of your question. I'm happy to answer additional questions as they may come up.
Just one more follow-up, if I might. Where is the actual camera? Is it in the officer's car? Is it at a fixed point? Where is it?
So it can be either trailer-based and or fixed. So generally, the deployment or the camera would be deployed in a trailer, so maybe parked, 400 meters downstream from law enforcement. So that way, as the vehicle passes the technology, whether it's fixed like in a variable messaging sign or a gantry or via trailer, then they've got within 3 to 5 seconds, the images are transmitted, right? So then they've got a countdown timer, which tells them roughly when that vehicle is going to pass them. So now they know the vehicle, the red Chevy in lane 2 is approaching. I see the violation image. I now visually confirm that right with my eyes, and I make the determination, is that consistent with what the evidence tells me, right? And then they can use their discretion to initiate the stop, have that interaction with the violator, show them why they pulled them over, and address the situation from there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. Seeing no further questions, that concludes the hearing on that bill. Thank you for your testimony. We'll now move to Senate Bill 866. Senator Quarterman, you are up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take a moment here before we get started. As some of you may know, before I was born, my father was a member of the Maryland Senate. And as a deputy state's attorney in Washington County, when he came to the Senate, he was a proud member of this committee. So to have the opportunity to present to this committee today as a member of the Senate myself is a moment not lost on me. And I just wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity. With that, Mr. Chair, members of the Judicial Proceedings Committee, thank you for this opportunity to present Senate Bill 866 to you this afternoon. For the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, Washington County. I do need to make the committee aware that we had a slight communication issue with bill drafting when this bill was drafted. As such, there was an amendment that you all should have received in your emails this morning. We will also be submitting this to the committee for your consideration during your deliberations. In essence, the amendment strikes the bill pretty much its entirety, and the bill as amended is really quite simple. It simply is requesting to raise the per diem rate that the state reimburses our local correctional facilities. Currently, the state must provide each county a $45 per diem for each day between 12 and 18 months that a sentenced inmate is confined in a local correctional facility during the second preceding fiscal year. The current reimbursement has not been updated since 2009. This bill, as amended, would raise the rate from $45 to $54. We reached out to all 24 jurisdictions across the state. We ended up hearing back from almost half of them, about 10 jurisdictions. And other than Charles County, which is around in the $45 to $55 range, all other jurisdictions were considerably higher. In Worcester, there was $68 per day. In Allegheny, $72. Talbot, $80. Washington County, $89. Carroll County, $90. And Orange all the way up to Baltimore City was $133 per day, and Anne Arundel was $230 per day, the cost per inmate. So as you can see, quite a difference from the $45 the current reimbursement rate from the state is. Of those 10, that average is about $103. We also made some inquiries into the federal per diem rate reimbursement. We did hear back in regards to 2 jurisdictions in Talbot and Anne Arundel, where the federal reimbursement was roughly $80 and $120 respectively. With over a decade between 2009, when that rate was last updated, now, obviously the cost of living has increased, the cost of housing an inmate has increased, not to mention in many jurisdictions, local facilities have been housing inmates considerably longer now due to the challenges and restrictions that COVID-19 has presented. So in order to provide the proper care, medication, housing, reentry services are needed to successfully prepare inmates for the next steps. Our local correctional facilities need more proper and reasonable funding. So, with that, I thank you all for consideration of the bill, and I respectfully ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 866. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Quarterman. Good to have another Quarterman back on JPR. So next, I have for your primary witness, I have Mr. Reese. Mr. Reese, you're up next.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Smith and members of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. Thank you, Senator Quarterman. I'm Major T.D. Reese, the administrator of the Calvert County Detention Center and president of the Maryland Correctional Administrators Association. And I'm honored to be here this afternoon to speak in support of Senate Bill 866. The MCAA, we are in support of the increase in the daily per diem or the return of the daily per diem to $54 a day for holding a state or a DOC sentenced inmate in a local correctional facility. The per diem was reduced several years ago. It was at 54. Am I on there? Am I good?
We can hear you. We just can't see you.
All right, let me see.
There you go. We can see you now. Perfect.
All right. All right. So several years ago was there, and through 2009, through some budget cuts, they reduced the per diem rate for local jails holding DOC sentenced inmates. So the increase coming back will definitely help support local facilities with the ever increasing cost of running programs and services for our inmates that are spending longer sentences in local facilities. This funding will go a long way to support the program. But however, I do want to stress within, I know it's not mentioned, but we want to make sure that that I stated anyways, that it doesn't in any way impede on any agency that has already entered into an MOU with DPSCS reference to their reentry program and holding inmates in the local facility at that reentry for the reentry program services. Some have negotiated a higher funding rate than what is currently being paid at the $45 a day. So with that being said, MCAA asked the committee to give Senate Bill 866 a favorable report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good to see you again. So next we have Mr. Sanderson. Hey, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. We also support the bill with the sponsors' amendments, and also very much attached myself to the comments you just heard from Major Reese and the correctional administrators. For context, 2009 was not just, oh, we routinely updated this reimbursement and made things a little fairer for the local jail. 2009 was when local jail reimbursements were thrown overboard as part of state budget cutting, as part of the Great Recession. So, it's not exactly like, oh, gee, we've gone 10 years since we've refreshed this number and it's time to make it right. We've gone 10 years without making this right, period. It used to be that the state did right by local corrections and said, when you're sentenced for a year or less to the local jail, the state will reimburse those costs directly. The $45 was this is all we can do in tough times in 2009. And it was just never a sexy enough issue to get back to and fix, in all candor. So the senator's exactly right, and the major's exactly right, that this is totally in need of an update. But the context is a tough budget time in 2009. Remember, the stock market's falling apart, the real estate market's falling apart. But we end up with a decade of putting our local jails on a starvation budget as a result of a couple tough years of the state budget. We've been in recovery since. It's high time to replace this number, and this bill is a step in very much the right direction. We support. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanderson. So that'll conclude the testimony for Senate Bill 866. We'll now turn to the committee for questions. We have one question, at least from here, Senator Jackson. Senator Jackson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's great to see you, Senator Quarterman. Our former seatmate over in appropriations, along with Senator Hellerman. Look, I have a little bit of history on the what this bill is addressing. It's always great to see Calvert County in leadership. Great to see you, TD. And I think you're right, Mr. Sanderson. It is high time that the locals are supported as they need to be. Some jurisdictions have the ability, unfortunately, because of population, to be able to address those concerns. But this is a good bill. I'll certainly be supporting the bill. It's great to see that we're finally turning that corner to kind of take care of the local needs. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Jackson. All right. Looking around the room for additional questions. Major Reese, Mr. Sanderson, Senator Quarterman, thank you all very much. And with that, that'll conclude the hearing for Senate Bill 868. We'll now move on to Senator Quarterman. Sorry, that was 866. We'll now move on to Senator Quarterman with Senate Bill 868. Senator Quarterman, you're up.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Judicial Committee. Again, for the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, Washington County. Thank you for the opportunity today to present Senate Bill 868, Correctional Services Inmate Release. As we continue to rehabilitate individuals and prepare them for reentry, it is critical that we are setting them up to succeed as they reenter society, to maximize their chances of success of being productive and contributing members of society. In numbers that we received from the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Facilities from 2015 through 2018, there were over 1,700 individuals that were released into Washington County from the 3 state correctional facilities located within our county. Of those 1,700, a little over 1,200 were individuals whose crimes originated outside of Washington County. That translates into roughly 70% of the individuals that were released into the county from our state correctional facilities were, again, those who originated from outside of the county. The rural communities where a majority of the correctional institutes are located simply cannot keep up and handle this population influx, and we are setting reentry up for failure. In a county whose largest municipality, the city of Hagerstown, is only 40,000 people, we don't have the resources or the services to properly assist these individuals. And the reality is, any ability that we do have, that threshold has far been surpassed and exceeded. In the uploaded testimony, you will find a letter of support from one of the leading reentry service providers in Western Maryland, Gatekeepers. Gatekeepers is doing phenomenal work in our community. However, they see what is happening firsthand at the ground level. They are the ones who are working diligently to provide opportunities for success. In that letter, they lay out a number of examples that point to the failures that are currently occurring in regards to reentry. Examples of individuals who are being released to the rescue mission, which is our homeless shelter. What kind of chance of success are we providing individuals by releasing them into a community that they know no one, they have no support system in place, and their home plan is the local homeless shelter? We are literally setting them up for failure. The intent of this bill is to assist individuals in the reentry process by facilitating their release from our state correctional facilities through the local correctional facilities so they can be reconnected with local reentry services, parole and probation, job placement, and other wraparound services to ensure their success. The State Department of Corrections will work in tandem with the respective local correctional facility to determine the best timeline for that individual to be relocated to the local facility. And the State Department of Corrections will use the address that the department has on file when an individual has entered the correctional facility, their census data, their voter registration data, and if necessary, their motor vehicle administration data to determine the individual's local facility. Without the proper support system in place, a disservice is being done to both the individuals being released from our state correctional facilities and the communities who simply do not have these proper support systems in place, again, to support and assist the individuals through a successful reentry process. And when we are not providing the services and support to those being reentered into our society, there's a far greater likelihood that recidivism will occur. And when that occurs, we have failed. We have failed not only our communities, but we have failed the individuals that we are responsible for assisting in their integration back into society. You'll find letters of support to this bill from our local government, the Board of County Commissioners in Washington County, leaders in our faith-based community, the Community Action Council, and again, one of our leading reentry providers in the community. I thank you for consideration again today as I respectfully ask and urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 868. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Quarterman. Excellent. We've got your primary witness is Mr. Michael. Mr. Michael, you're up next.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Great. I'm the Deputy State's Attorney. Members of the committee, thank you for hearing from me. I'm the Deputy State's Attorney in Washington County. We have two deputies, and I'm the one who does the district court now. And in district court, we do the bond reviews. So I see firsthand, I probably see 70% of the bond reviews that come through and look at the criminal histories. And as Senator Quarterman has pointed out, we have failed at that point. When I see somebody that has unfortunately earned a berth at the Division of Corrections by crimes elsewhere, and then they're on our streets and reoffending. And it's very sad to see. And it is a symptom of, it's not a problem in itself. It's obviously a problem for that person, but it's a symptom of a larger problem, that a lack of planning and a lack of home. Hagerstown is not the home for these individuals. They don't have the support of anything familiar. You can tell that it's related to the prisons because, men and women both commit crimes, but I'm not getting women who were recently released from women's prison. That's further downstate, unless they're from Hagerstown. It does happen, but these men are lost. They're in a strange environment and they revert. They do not have the support. And it is a symptom of rehabilitation, recovery, reentry, everything we've invested in coming to a crashing halt. And we've spent a lot of focus on making rehabilitation and reentry a success. But the first step out of prison is the first step after your last step in prison. And what Senator Quarterman's bill does is make that step into a more familiar environment. It doesn't suggest that if they have a viable home plan, they can't come to any county in this state that they have a good home plan in, and that's fine. But it does make their first step into their original county. Human nature tells us, what do we hear? The grass is always greener, right? That you think things are going to be better somewhere else. And I think that's the false promise that being released in one of the more rural counties where an institution is, that must be the draw. I don't really understand it, but obviously, as Senator Quarterman has pointed out, he has the numbers, and our systems are not set up to take it. Maybe the better saw would be, there's no place like home. There's no place like home, or home is where the heart is, instead of going to an alien environment. Let's think about how our resources are allocated, and the reentry resources, understandably, are allocated to places that have greater population. And luckily, I can give you some good news. It's not all doom and gloom, but wave your hand in front of your monitor if you've heard of Merle, of the Unger case and the many long-term prisoners who have been released. Well, the Huffington Report followed 164 of those individuals. Now, they were released to their home, largely the urban areas. And I will quote from the Huffington Report, says, and this is in 2016, so far the results have justified their faith. According to the Office of the Public Defender, of the 143 Ungers who have been released, not a single one has been convicted of anything more serious than a traffic offense. There has only been one probation violation, a technical infraction that resulted in a stern talking to. 0 of the Ungers have violated parole. 0 have been sent back to prison. Well, that's good news, right? And the reason for that is the Maryland School of Social Work has provided those people great services. Now, let me give you the bad news. 3, I guess they're outside of that 143. We had 4 people that qualified under the Unger rule, Mr. Unger, who's still in prison, and 3 others. Of those 3 that achieved release, every single one of them. So of the 143 in the urban area that they're batting 1,000, we're batting 0 in Hagerstown. They've all been back to prison just because we do not have the critical mass to have those wraparound services that these individuals deserve after our investment in rehabilitation and reentry. So thank you for listening, and I'm glad I could give you that sterling example. And if you have any questions, I'll help take them.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Michael. We're going to move on to Mr. Sanderson, and then we'll take questions from the committee. So Mr. Sanderson, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, Michael Sanderson with the Maryland Association of Counties. We've submitted written testimony as a support with amendments. I'll make a few comments, and I think I'll probably resolve the top line difference between our view and that of the correctional administrators. I don't think there's a substantive difference. So let me walk through that briefly. We know that the sponsor is putting in this bill to target an issue. He's an ally of local corrections, looking out for his community, but there's also a statewide issue here, and that's what brings MACO to the table. The main idea of the bill is that reentry, a successful reentry, has its best chance when the individual lands in an environment where there's home, where there's family, a former workplace, friends, those sorts of things. That's our best chance for a successful reentry. And I think that's a core idea that's not just about Hagerstown or areas that host state facilities, but it's about the best way to do the business of corrections and reentry. Our amendment on the bill is basically, I think this vision is right, but this ought to be done with both parties entering into, like, one of the things the bill talks to is a memorandum of understanding. I think that's the right vehicle to do this. So have the Division of Corrections and the local jail and the local government on board with, here's what we're going to do. These are the classes of inmates, or these are the individual people or characteristics that should be sent locally. The bill speaks to a 5-day time period. That's probably not a magic number. That probably should be part of the negotiation as well. But if everybody's on board, having folks hosted locally for a while before reentry, that sounds like the sort of thing that we ought to enable those agreements. Having this be one-sided just from the state sending them locally probably goes too far, but there's a kernel idea here trying to target a real issue. We support that this is an idea worth targeting, appreciate the senator's interest in it, and I think with some work, this could set a framework that a lot of jurisdictions might be able to get behind. So that's our support with amendments on the bill, and we thank the sponsor.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. So with that concludes the testimony for Senate Bill 868. We'll turn to the committee for questions. I think I saw Senator Jackson with a question. There you go.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Senator Quarterman, thank you for presenting the bill. This is a familiar bill. Long before my legislative days, I served as the Director of Leadership Development for Public Safety. This is back in the days when Governor O'Malley was in office and Secretary Maynard led the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. I recall attending many meetings with the Maryland Correctional Administrators Association where this was a topic of conversation. So this is certainly not new. The build out of the prisons of the state, multiple prisons in the state to Western Maryland has created many challenges. Now, I certainly understand the sentiment of where a person is released if that's not where they're from. That can create some challenges. I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to get to them. But I also understand that we as a state have worked, and I say we because we are officials of the state. We work to ensure that certain areas of the state had the opportunities to bring employment, which means, i.e., the buildup of jails in the western part of the state and other places. My first question is, I'm looking at the committee testimony, and I do not see, I don't see TD Reese, Major Reese on the line any longer as the representative for MCAA, Maryland Correctional Administrators Association. So I guess I would really like to know where this conversation has gone since, I'm talking 2011, 2012, when I first heard about this challenge. And secondly, as we look at, is there a challenge in the state's attorney mentioned the challenge of being able to facilitate folks with reentry in the county. Talk to me more about the challenges of that occurring when someone is released there versus getting them back to their home counties or last place of residence. Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Hold on. All right, Senator Corderman, do you want to say anything or?
Well, in reference to Senator Jackson's comments, as far as the challenge of reentry, I don't know that question was to me. I believe he asked it was the state's attorney. I'm happy to defer to State's Attorney Michael. Yeah. I believe that was what you were asking, Senator Jackson. Was that correct?
Yeah, that was the second question. The first question was regarding MCAA's position.
So MCAA,
Major Reese, he jumped off the line.
Yeah, he jumped off. We've been working with them in the interim. Now, in full disclosure, we thought we had an understanding going into the bill. I don't believe they were going to be offering support today. I don't know if he put written testimony in or not, but I know there were some communication challenge that in regards to the 5 days. I know that was brought up by Michael Sanderson. I think that's where some of the communication challenges have been with the local facilities. The bill, as it's written, would say at least 5 days before an inmate is scheduled to be released from confinement. And what that means is some people are interpreting that would be that the inmate wouldn't be returned until just 5 days. And well, in 5 days, what are we going to do with them in 5 days? Well, you can return them up to 30 days. 5 days would be the minimum amount. You know what I mean? As far as when the inmate would be transferred for reentry. We're trying to leave the spectrum open so the State Department of Corrections and then the local facility will be able to work to see what the best situation was for that particular individual, wherever it needed to be 30 days or 60 days. As you know, they know usually 6 months or a year out where an individual's home plan is going to be. So they could identify, say it's an individual from Washington County, he's at ECI on the Eastern Shore. They would know a year out he's coming back to Washington County. They could start working up for reentry services. Now he may actually get transferred to Washington County until again, whatever that appropriate time is. Whether it's 60 days, 30 days, I would leave that discretion to the professionals of the local correction, the state correctional. So I think there was some misunderstanding with that 5 days there. But I can't speak for Major Reese directly, but it was my understanding. I do not believe he was going to speak in support of the bill. So I want to be transparent in that frame.
Right. So I like to offer, look, I mean, we sat on I think we've had these conversations before when we were on the House side.
Sure.
You use me as a resource, and I would certainly like to see us come to some sort of agreement here because, it doesn't make any sense to release someone who's lost.
Right.
I agree with that. But I also, it's like it's all in your delivery and all of our delivery on how we kind of put these things out there. And I think it's best if we can kind of come to some sort of amicable agreement with MCAA. And so I offer that to you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Senator. Like I said, I thought we were there. We had multiple discussions during the interim. And I think it was just, I don't know, quite honestly, I was interested to see what Major Reese was going to say today ourselves because we just found this out last night. So we'll continue to work on that. And I think you're
Okay,
100%
cool.
right.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay,
Chairman.
excellent.
Yeah, I can. I'll work with the senator going forward and see how I can help him out. Or how.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Jackson. All right, looking around the room for additional questions. Sorry, I got to scroll through. Missed people yesterday, so make sure we're squared away. All right, seeing no further questions. Thank you very much, Senator Quarterman. That'll conclude the hearing for Senate Bill 868. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by, JPR. All right. All right. Next, I see Chairman Gazone is here. Mr. Chairman, you are up next. I know you have a very short hearing, so you're up next with Senate Bill 879.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I know you tried to accommodate me earlier. I've been running around in circles, and you can see I'm in the State House right now. So this bill is, I hope you'll find it an interesting idea, a good idea that will help provide some service to Marylanders. This is about the individuals who provide a great service in teaching our kids how to drive and provide it through their driver's schools. And then what this bill does is give those individuals, or potentially give those individuals, after some regulation, the ability to do the actual driver's test. So the idea simply, and this came to me from some constituents, we have these folks out here who are clearly qualified in teaching our children. We put them, we set them up with the ability to teach our children. We let them get into their cars and teach them what they need to know and give them driving instructions on the road. But then, interestingly enough, we send them to a facility with motor vehicles to take the test. And the idea was simply, what about giving these folks the ability, since they have these qualifications, to actually administer the test? Would that be convenient? Would that help parents out there? Would it help new drivers? And so that's what this bill is about. You know, I know certainly from my own experience, I had 3 kids who I taught how to drive and went through the process and everything. There's no place to take the test in Howard County. And so, you know, you drive somewhere to take the test and it's out of county, and that's fine. I mean, it's inconvenient. But then, and I won't say which one, failed the test, and then we had to go back again. And so this is just really, hopefully, a simple convenience. We have a history of having third-party folks provide services for motor vehicles, the titling companies, which I know a lot of people find very convenient and really speed along their process. This is just another attempt to do that with folks who are very qualified to do so. And that is the bill.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman Gazone. And so with that, we have 2 witnesses. One is Francis Sheehan. You are up as the primary.
Thank you for allowing me to speak on the Senate Bill 879. My name is Chip Sheehan. I'm the president and co-owner of Street Smarts in Maryland. Prior to becoming an owner, I spent 29 years in the United States Secret Service, 26 teaching nothing but driver training. I've taught nationally and internationally. I am the subject matter expert for the Secret Service, and I'm here to support this bill. I think it's a natural extension of what we already are doing with our drivers. Instructors are already highly trained and they are certified by the state. Why not let them use their knowledge, training, and education to administer the driving test? As the state senator already explained, Howard County does not have a site currently. And as an owner, we received many calls about the backlog, and that was prior to COVID. and now it's actually increased. Third party would just be an option. It's not going to be we're going to take it over. Very similar to the tag and title. People have the option to utilize the service if they like. If not, they can use the state facilities as well. The third-party testing was also going to save the state some money if they had to open or expand for a facility. My conclusion for the recommendation is instructors now go through an extensive apprentice licensing process. The state should be able to capitalize on their investment with all the driving schools. Passing this bill would be the first step in creating a partnership with the MVA, if not through a partner pilot project, a statewide program that other states can emulate. I would request favorable consideration of this bill.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Sheehan, do you know a gentleman by the name of Danny Spriggs? Does that name sound familiar to you?
I had the pleasure to work with and under Danny Spriggs for a number of years.
He is my cousin.
Very good man. Also a football player, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, I thought you'd know him. Anyway, good to see you. All right, great. So we'll now go on to Jason. You're up, Mr.
Hello, Chairman, Senators. Thanks for listening today. So my name is Jason Fedician. I am a co-owner of Street Smarts of Maryland. I also own the largest driving school in Pennsylvania, and we currently have 8 private testing facilities. Bringing third-party testing to Maryland it would increase, the ability for Maryland to get their backlog down, the convenience for everybody. The test is not made easier. It's the same test, the same rules, the same regulations. I've done tens of thousands of tests in Pennsylvania, and I've seen nothing but a great success with it. Multiple states already have it in process, whether it's for non-CDL or CDL, including Pennsylvania and DC, which border Maryland. By allowing us to do it, constituents will be able to have a choice and do what they want. Driving schools are trained to look for adverse situations with drivers. To my knowledge, the people doing exams now aren't trained that way. It helps keep people safer while doing the driving exam as well. Everything's bonded, everybody's insured, background checks are done. The same priorities that you would take with your examiners now are done in a private party. We were one of the first pilots, and like I said, it's been 4 years now in Pennsylvania. It's growing throughout the US in multiple states to get the backlog down and to save money on a budget. I think if Maryland would consider this, you'd see the citizens be happier. I hope that you guys support Senate Bill 879. I'm willing to take any questions about what we do in Pennsylvania and what we'd like to bring to Maryland.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And with that, that will conclude the testimony for Senate Bill 879. I'll turn to the committee for questions. I saw that. Did Senator Hedelman have a question? I saw that this time. Did you have a question, Senator Hedelman? Okay, you're good. Sorry, hold on. I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Actually, Jason just answered it, but I do, because I was curious about other states, but I do have to say, as the mom of 2 kids who went through this process, I'm angry that I didn't come up with this bill, because I think it's brilliant. So thank you for bringing it to us. I think it's a great approach to something that every parent struggles with. Thank you.
That's great. All right, Senator West, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm probably, I'm the longest person away from the driving test of anybody on the screen, I suspect. I took my test back in 1966. But when I did, there was a written portion and a driving skills portion. And I assume that's still what goes on. Does anybody know what happens these days?
Yes, I could answer that.
Kelly is shaking her head yes. Chip, do you know what's happening?
Yes.
How it's done?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. There still is a permit test that needs to be taken before they come to us. There's a 30-hour class that they receive and have to pass that, and then it's 6 hours in car. And we have to sign off on that before they can even be eligible to take the class or take the test at the MVA. But
my
we
question is,
also
at
have
the
to
end,
have
when they get to the MVA, don't they have to sit first of all and take a written test, and then they go outside and cop in a car with a tester, and they have to drive the car and prove that they know how to, that they've got the sufficient skills to operate the car safely on the road?
I guess it's changed a little bit since 1966. They take the test, and then when they actually do the skills test, because of COVID, it is not any longer on the road. It's in a parking lot, and there's no actual written test. So the 60 hours. So it's basically test, permit, 60 hours, the 6 hours with us driving, and then they're ready to take the exam.
Okay. So I don't know whether you all have received a copy of the Department of Transportation's letter of information. Per usual, they don't take a position, but they do ask some pertinent questions. So I thought it would be fair for me to read the questions and see if you all have responses to them. So it says, Senate Bill 879 would have significant and far-reaching changes to the current methods by which MVA conducts driver skills testing. And ensures licenses are issued only to those demonstrating the capacity to operate a motor vehicle safely in Maryland. There are approximately 482 driving school branches in Maryland. MVA would need to ensure quality assurance for any testing that's completed at driving schools. So it sounds like a lot of people driving around visiting driving schools trying to find out whether or not that they're conducting these tests appropriately.
Senator West, can I answer that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, we are already under the examination from the MBA, and all driving schools that are licensed are subject to spot inspections. So I don't understand how it would add to it. They would be the ones could probably figure out what schools would be able to do this. It would have to be one of the larger schools. I'd like to be part of a pilot program if they were to have it. As for, the other states are currently doing this, that doesn't represent a problem. And it's replicating exactly the test that they're given at the MBA, only a different location. And I wouldn't play with our license to cut corners or anything like that. So they're more than welcome to watch any of the examinations.
Well, now, when I took my test, again, it's going way back, at the MVA, it was a large parking lot behind the building. And it was all configured. And I'm sure the instructors had little checklists in their minds of things they expected the applicant to achieve. So when you turn right, he'd want you to make sure that you put your flicker light on to signal that you're turning right. And then there'd be a stop sign. And then there'd be a crosswalk and other things like that. How in the world are 462 driving schools going to configure an area to give these tests, which will be consistent, one to another, to the one down in Glen Burnie at the MVA headquarters?
Okay, well, my understanding is that if we are doing the mirror test of what is being done now at the MVA, it's only a parking scenario. But if we do go back to pre-COVID, it was that first, and then we take them onto the road. I've run routes for the president. It's a very simple system that we'd have to do for individual schools. Our routes are done for that currently. To get a license in Maryland for every school, there has to be licensed routes that are checked off by the MBA so that they are covering all the 6 hour bases. So the first 2 hours is, and I'm painting with a very broad brush here, residential driving. The second is basically the parking, and the third is highway. Normally,
I remember the parallel parking part, although I gather these days parallel parking is no longer required, right?
Correct. It's pull in, reverse perpendicular, and a 3-point turn. And then pretty much here's your license.
Heaven help us when these people get out on the streets and have to parallel park.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Senator West. Looking around the committee, seeing no further questions, that looks like that'll conclude the hearing for Senate Bill 879. Thank you, Senator Guzon, Mr. Chairman, and Chip. I texted Danny, and I'll tell him we connected. So I'm glad we made the connection.
All the best. Thank you.
All right. Hey, have a good one. All right. Next, we have Senator Bidle. Our apologies for keeping you waiting. You're up next. We have Senate Bill 888. Senator Bidle, you're up next. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman Wallstreicher, members of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. I understand I'm your last bill for today, and you may get out while it's still daylight. So congratulations. I think it's your first night this year to be out before daylight. But thank you for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 888. I have actually 3 constituents with me tonight. This bill is about a small stretch of road. If you travel 295 at all, there's an area where a lot of vehicles, including big trucks, get off of 295 onto 175. And the traffic is very heavy. They're traveling fast because they're coming off of 295. We now have 65,000 people a day drive into NSA. We have the National Business Park, at least 1,000 new apartment units. And so the traffic on this little sleepy state road has turned into be just very, very congested, but still very fast. You're going to hear from Mr. Villa today. I think his yard has been hit 5 times with speeding vehicles. His garage has been hit, his fence. Yesterday or the day before, it was a fire hydrant that was hit. We have a lot of big trucks that are traveling to the prisons. So this stretch of road from where you get off of 295 to the Howard County line is just a very small stretch of road that needs monitoring. And so this is Senate Bill 888 is just enabling legislation that would allow Anne Arundel County to place speed monitoring system in that small stretch of road. I think I had a video of some speeding incidents. If it can be uploaded, I think that's up to Sandy Pock if she can do that. And then I'd like for my community members to be able to tell their story. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Villa may need to tell you where the accident happens. It's kind of difficult with all the lights, but it does happen right in that stretch of road.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Bidle. We saw that clearly. I have Mr. Alexi as your primary witness. Would you like Mr. Alexi to go first and then go to Mr. Villa, or do you want to go to Villa first and so you can provide the explanation?
I think let's go to Mr. Villa first. He has the most dramatic of the stories because it's his house that's been hit so many times.
Got it.
So if he could.
Excellent.
Mr. Villa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, thank you, first of all, Chairman Smith. I live right there in that corner, 175 and Wiggly. And we've had, now it's gonna be 5 instances where cars have come in, and that video just displayed how that speeding truck came in off of 175, destroyed my fence, and went into my neighbor's yard. Luckily, it didn't destroy his home, but we had one instance where they hit our home and then went straight into our garage. So the speed that the cars are traveling is almost negligent to a point. And I'm in the construction field, so I have to basically wear my class 3 safety gear to go out to get my mail for my mailbox. So it's very dangerous, and I'd hope you consider to put some cameras, because it would serve a great deterrent from people speeding, because you have 295 and 95, and it serves as a great connection, 175, but the cars are just traveling way too fast. And that's why we're in favor of Senate Bill 888.
Thank you very much, Mr. Villa. Do you have children, or do you?
You have a 1-year-old, so come springtime, we have like 1.4 acres where she could run around, but in the front, it's becoming too dangerous to try to let her play. We have a playground in the back portion of her lot, so I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't want to come to a point where the death of my daughter leads to some action. I wanted to be, have some type of action being taken place before. I own a business, have another piece of property on Dorsey Run Road off of close to 175. My brother lives on Forest. I have another brother that lives close by. So we're very familiar with the area, and we know that cars do travel rather fast. And we'd like to see some cameras. As soon as someone gets a fee for speeding, they'll think twice before violating the speed limit on that road.
Excellent. Hey, thank you for taking the time out of your day to testify today, and stay safe. Keep that baby safe. All right. Thank you very much. All right, so if it's okay with you, Senator Bidle, we'll switch over to your primary, Mr. Alexi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On behalf of our organization, in the last 6 months, we've been approached by many residents along 175 due to the concern with the traffic exceeding the speed limit of 45 to 55 miles an hour. As Pam and Ms. Bidle has indicated, the 2-mile corridor between between Howard County Line and 295, many of these vehicles are tractor trailers, concrete mixers, and new car carriers traveling at high rates of speed. The residents have attempted to get out of their driveways onto 175 and return to them. However, they face great danger. Many of the residents who come back home in this area, trying to make a left-hand turn onto oncoming traffic, the issue is not the oncoming traffic, it is the rapidly approaching vehicles that are coming from behind them, that are doing speeds of 45, if not 55 miles an hour. The area on 175 in this area only has a 3-foot wide-away shoulder. So tractor trailers that are doing 55 miles an hour do not have any room for error to overtake these turning cars or for people trying to turn into their vehicle or into their residents. Many of the residents have taken unnecessary chances to get their cars into their driveway only to cut off vehicles heading at them. The other concerns we're having is the mailboxes. Once again, there's only a 3-foot wide away on the shoulder, and they basically have to be 1 foot away from this traffic. I've talked to several of the U.S. postal carriers. They too are voicing their concerns as their vehicles are out on the roadway 1 to 2 feet with vehicles traveling at high rates of speed behind them. And if they make the wrong error, it could be serious situations for them. The intersection at 175 and Wiggly Avenue, where Mr. Vila is, the biggest concerns we're having there were residents are coming up to the traffic light, waiting for the light to turn green. However, because of the speeding traffic going between 175 or going down 175 east and westbound, as the motorists become to the intersection, they'll see the light turn yellow. They will even speed up to higher speeds to get through the intersection before the light turns red. However, in many cases, this is not the case. The light will turn red. The people on Wiggly Avenue waiting to get onto 175 will sit and wait 5 to 10 seconds and still witness cars going through the red light at high rates of speed. The other issue that is probably one of the biggest issues we're having there as well, many of the residents that are traveling from 295 going in towards Howard County, as Senator Bidle has indicated, are going at these speeds, which are going down on 295. But as they enter the intersection, they will get into the right-hand turn lane that goes down to Wiggly Avenue, but they will not exit onto Wiggly Avenue. They will use it as a passing lane to get ahead of cars ahead of them and then try to jump back onto the westbound lane to 175. Unfortunately, as Mr. Vila showed in his photo there, it has been unsuccessful. There was one photo that he didn't show, and it showed where a car went through his backyard and went through his rear garage, and it missed his rear patio within feet. So if he and his family were out there having a social event, it could have been very dangerous and deadly. We have requested the assistance of the Anne Arundel County Police Traffic and Speed Control Enforcement, and we're told they were unable to set up speed traps in this area due to the limited shoulder. It would be a danger for the police officers and those who they had pulled over. However, they did bring out their speed monitoring trailer, which was set up back in November. It was an extreme success in limiting the amount of traffic. However, the residents that lived near where this trailer was set up had told me that they were watching it and witnessed speeds indicating 48 to 55 mile an hour by not only small vehicles, but tractor trailers. I own an actual personal corporate property along 175 down and in Severn, which is about 1.5 miles east of the Jessup location. In the last 2 months, I wish I would have had the photo to show you. There was 2 major accidents that my recording showed. One in which a vehicle was traveling westbound on 175, zooming in and out of traffic. Once it got to the intersection of Disney and 175, it jumped into the left turn lane that goes to Mead High. The vehicle speeded roughly what the police had indicated, roughly around 70 miles an hour. As it approached the intersection to merge back on, was not able to. It then took on the eastbound traffic, which was heading on to incoming traffic. Within 100 yards, it hit a 78-year-old lady in a blue Toyota car. The impact was devastating. The car had actually exploded on impact. Both were taken to the hospital. But it doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, a Chevrolet pickup did the exact same scenario, traveling westbound on 175 at a high rate of speed, jumped into the left-hand turn lane, got up to the intersection, tried to merge back over again, and was unsuccessfully able to do that as well. He hit the medium strip, which is a 4-foot medium strip, a 3-foot medium strip with a 4-inch curve. Upon entering the
Mr. Alexi, that was the that was the timer. We don't have a timer, an actual timer. So you get the voice of God coming and telling you that your time's up. But if you could briefly conclude.
I was gonna say it's very short. Basically, that truck blew up both front tires and hit the vehicles, causing a massive accident there. The concern at that intersection was it's high school students cross the intersection there and normally stand on the medium strip. My point being, and I'll finish this up, is the same scenario that's happening by my properties in Severn is the same scenario we're having down in Jessup. The vehicles are going way too fast for this speed, and speed cameras are needed to slow down to protect all the citizens and children. That's asking for your support on this bill.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I don't see Mr. Steffens in the room. So we're going to go to Miss Allen.
Hello.
We can hear you. You're ready to go. Good to see you.
Okay, thank you. I'm here to testify that I am in favor of the speed cameras. Numerous times when I take my daughter to school, I live on Forest Avenue. When I get up to top of Wiggly at the red light to get on, to make a left onto 175, I have to wait for both sides to be completely stopped because the cars will still run the red light. And it's clearly they have a red light. They will still run right through it. And it's just, it's very dangerous on that road. Can you hear me?
Mr. Chairman, can I add one thing? Can hear. Somebody shake your head if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. I just want to say when Mr. Alexi was speaking, he is president of the Jessup Improvement Association. So we do have support of the Community Association. I just want to make sure I mentioned that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, any further questions from the committee? Senator Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Vital, for bringing this piece of legislation here. I think you're very much aware of our state road challenges with speed, and traditionally we don't put cameras there, but as you know, we were successful in the Prince George's County side with the challenges down on 210, and we've actually expanded that a couple of times in conjunction with the engineering studies. And then there are some additional bills that are in E&T on the House side that mirror exactly what you're talking about. One, for example, is in my community where we have zero shoulder on those rural roads, and we are also the product living in southern Prince George's of St. Mary's, Charles, Calvert County folks driving through. No shoulder, and it's a rural district, so you have farm equipment, and less than a third of a mile of line of sight. So I understand exactly what you're going through, and I'm hoping that we will kind of move forward and give the communities the opportunity to address the concerns they have. So thank you for bringing the bill.
Senator Jackson, thank you. And I actually used your county legislation to model this. I was a little late getting the bill in. I didn't go beyond the last day, but it was my last bill doing the research, and I appreciate what your county had done, and that's what I followed. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Jackson, and thank you, Senator Beidel. I think with that, that'll conclude the hearing. Seeing no further questions. So that'll conclude the hearing for Senate Bill 888. Thank you very much, Senator Beidel. Thank you to the committee members. Thank you to the panelists, and stay safe, Mr. Villa. So for the committee, tomorrow we have voting at 10 a.m. But otherwise, our work was done for the day. So I'll see you all tomorrow.